Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Abrams, and this is Court Case.
You ready to take your plea?
I'll kill all you little. I hope you die in prison as well.
First up in Fort Worth, Texas, for the trial of Glenn McCurley. The 78-year-old was charged with capital murder after advancements in DNA technology linked him to a cold case homicide from nearly 50 years earlier. In 1974, 17-year-old Carla Walker was abducted from a parked vehicle after her boyfriend, who was inside, was pistol whipped by an assailant. Carla was then kidnapped, raped, and strangled to death. Her body was discovered in a culvert 3 days later. The case remained cold for nearly 5 decades until 2019, when Fort Worth police sent the bra Carla was wearing to a lab for advanced DNA testing, which ultimately linked Glenn McCurley to the crime. At trial, McCurley pleaded not guilty to the murder, and one of the first witnesses to take the stand was Carla's former boyfriend, Rodney McCoy, now 65 years old, who was with her in the car the night she was abducted.
We were going to a Valentine's Day dance, and it was at the high school. Parking lot was full of just high school students. I was in the driver's seat, and Carla had put her back against the passenger door.
The next thing he recalled was the passenger door being ripped open and being struck in the head with a pistol, leaving him dazed and incapacitated by the blow.
I'm not sure how many times I got hit. I believe it was more than once.
45 years later, Rodney still recalls the last time he saw Carla.
Carla turned her face to me, and I can visualize and said, "Rodney, go get Dad. Go get my dad." It's the last words I heard from Carla.
With emotions running high in a courtroom filled with family and friends of both the victim and McCurley, no one could have expected what happened next.
This is a charge of capital murder. Do you understand that charge? To that you may plead guilty or not guilty. What is your plea?
Guilty.
McCurley originally pled not guilty, but after presenting the judge a surprise written confession, he changes his plea and admits to the murder in the courtroom. In the gallery, friends and family of the victim, who were not expecting the guilty plea, can be seen embracing. Also in attendance, McCurley's own family, including his wife and son. And soon after, the judge follows up with McCurley's sentence.
Upon your plea of guilty and the judicial confession and all of the evidence before the court finds you guilty of capital murder. I set your life in the institutional division of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice.
But before living out the rest of his days in prison, he must first face the victim's sister.
You did the right thing by pleading guilty, but it should have happened a long time ago. She didn't deserve that. You had so many choices that night. You didn't have to kill her. You did not have to kill her. It's been hell. And what you've done now, Mr. McCurley, is taken all the pain and everything we went through and put it on your family now until the day they die. Because they're going to live with this too.
Next, we go to Wichita, Kansas for the sentencing of Michael Gaines. He's been convicted of battery against a law enforcement officer. Gaines was at a county jail for an unrelated charge when he got into an altercation with another prisoner. When two guards tried to intervene, he fought back and allegedly spit in the officer's face. He was found guilty, and the state is asking for a sentence of 10 years. Gaines appears before Judge Rebecca Pilshaw, who speaks to the defendant about his actions.
All the evidence shows that you deliberately...
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I know
The
you
words
did.
were that you deliberately were hawking up.
I didn't hawk up no saliva, okay? That's and you're gonna believe those lies. That's what I'm talking about. I didn't hawk up no saliva. You're gonna believe a lie because they wearing uniform.
The judge attempts to bring some order to the proceedings.
Look at me.
It's
I'm
like
in charge
eating.
of this.
You gotta scream at me. You gonna raise your voice at me?
Oh my God.
Gaines doesn't appear to be backing down from the judge, but it's nothing compared to what he has in store for Assistant DA Kevin O'Connor.
You raise your voice to me, I raise my voice to you. You just in a row.
I appreciate Mr. Gaines making my point for you.
You punk,
Very well received.
maggot mother.
And I don't think I have to take insults from
I know. You, you's a,
He's a tough guy now.
you's a,
But I think
you'll be a, after I get sentenced,
I
punk.
think Mr. Gaines is forfeited to me. And he's
I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. You punk.
I'm talking.
You.
Take out of the courtroom.
Judge Philshaw steps in, has Gaines removed. But before heading back to his cell, Gaines manages to get off a few more insults.
He's a maggot.
You're a tough guy.
He's a maggot, punk. You should have died when you was a baby. Maggot.
Anytime, Mr. Gaines.
Shut up, punk. He's a maggot. Should have died when you was a baby. Stillborn.
The judge decides to go beyond the 10 years and sentences Gaines to 13 years in a state prison. Next, we're outside the Maroochydore Magistrates Court in Queensland, Australia, where local police chief Darren Edwards is holding a press conference.
I'm not 100% on that.
When all of a sudden he hears a ruckus, steps away from the microphones, and says, "G'day, mate," to this man in red. This is Laszlo Fekete, a 39-year-old Hungarian here on a student visa, and who was just released from a court watch house on a public nuisance charge. Fekete was allegedly harassing a teenage girl nearby when her father found out and began chasing him. As it turns out, luckily Edwards, a former rugby player, was on the scene.
He's been inappropriate to my daughter. Coppers are coming! Coppers are coming!
Just calm down.
Fekete was just released for a similar incident involving inappropriate comments to a young woman, so police are more familiar with him.
Help me! Oh, it's hurting me!
Stand up. I did nothing. I did nothing, man. I'm innocent. Please show it to the news.
Next time Laszlo visits the courthouse, he'll have to tackle his own legal issues, as he's charged with public nuisance and unlawful stalking, and must pay a fine of $300. As for Edwards, he suffered a gash to his head, but no major injuries. When asked about the tackle, he said it comes with a job, and that his suit was due for a dry cleaning anyway. Next, we're in Virginia Beach, Virginia, for the trial of Joseph Merlino. The 31-year-old was charged with first-degree murder for allegedly killing his estranged girlfriend and mother of his young daughter on Valentine's Day by injecting her with cyanide. Security camera footage captures the 35-year-old victim, Ellie Tran, arriving at the home she shared with her mother around 8 p.m. After exiting the car, a man believed to be Merlino ambushes her from behind and stabs her in the leg with a syringe. Ellie can be seen briefly pursuing her assailant, then returns to the home where her mother called 911. Ellie Tran would not survive the attack. She died the following day of cyanide poisoning while in the hospital. Merlino maintained his innocence, claiming he was out of town at the time and not the person in the video. But eyewitness accounts from Tran's mother, as well as a longtime neighbor, both placed him near the scene moments after the crime. And his computer history showed searches related to making cyanide. Prosecutors argued Merlino was angry over a bitter custody battle for the couple's daughter. And after a 5-day trial, he was found guilty of first-degree murder. But just a day before his scheduled sentencing, he appears optimistic during an interview conducted from jail.
It was a huge mistake for justice, and the wrong person is sitting right now. I'm not only hoping to get my name cleared, I'm hoping that this insidious justice that has been brought over these past 2 years won't fall into someone else's hands. And hopefully I can get some case laws out of it under my name.
But the following day, just prior to sentencing, Merlino appears quite different. Covered by a blanket, he appears to be shaking uncontrollably and is unresponsive. And while foaming at the mouth at the defense table, a Commonwealth attorney questions the doctor who examined him earlier that morning, asking if the entire episode is just an act. The doctor testified that Merlino had no physical condition that could have caused the symptoms, but stated they could be induced by stress. Sentencing was ultimately postponed until the following week, when a seemingly healthy Joseph Merlino was given a life sentence for the murder of Ellie Tran. The victim's mother would take custody of the couple's 3-year-old child.
You stand before me of your own free will and consent.
We're in Freehold, New Jersey, where Judge Katie Gummer has made the unusual or perhaps unheard of decision to move legal proceedings from her majestic wood-paneled courtroom to the tiled walls of the courthouse bathroom. The reason? 26-year-old Brian Schultz and his soon-to-be bride, 21-year-old Maria Schultz, were getting ready to tie the knot in front of Judge Gummer. When Brian received a phone call from his mom, who was supposed to be in attendance. She was having an asthma attack. First responders soon arrived to stabilize Mom with oxygen and also suggest an idea. Bring the wedding to Mom in the bathroom. That's right. This couple is about to say I do in the courthouse loo.
You stand before me in happy anticipation of your marriage vows, which we are about to witness. Brian's, you of your own free will and consent, and I take Maria to be your lawfully wedded wife to live together in the holy estate of matrimony.
And the hissing you hear in the background, that's Mom's oxygen tank, and she's doing fine, just off camera.
Maria, to your own free will and consent, take Brian, your lawfully wedded husband, to live together in the holy estate of matrimony. I do, by the authority vested in me by the laws of the state of New Jersey, pronounce them married. You may kiss your spouse. All right.
Next, we head to a sentencing in Detroit, Michigan. The defendants are Ebony McEwen Ross, age 28, and Shanta Anderson, 23. They've pled guilty to second-degree murder in the shooting death of an auto parts store manager. 7 months earlier, as seen in this surveillance footage, the two entered the store looking to rob the place. Anderson then pulled a gun, and the two forced a number of employees to the floor and began emptying the cash register. That's when 69-year-old James Holler entered the scene. A former Marine and Vietnam vet tried to help his co-workers. But he was shot once in the head. He later died at the hospital. The two left with $100 and escaped in a car driven by 38-year-old Leviticus Butler, who later claimed he was in a love triangle with the women. In fact, the defendants were reportedly in the store to steal money in order to buy Butler a birthday present. The trio were arrested 2 weeks later, and Ross and Anderson pled guilty, hoping to avoid the maximum sentence of life in prison. Before a packed gallery that includes Haller's wife, Patricia, family members deliver impact statements, beginning with James's son, Christopher.
And if at all in my power, I'm going to make sure you spend every single year of that sentence to the maximum behind bars. And that's my goal.
Next, it's Haller's wife, now widow, who has a powerful message for the woman who pulled the trigger and ended her husband's life.
You don't know what you did, young lady. Do you understand me? You don't know what you did. And I wish I could get to you to hang you in here today.
But Haller wants more. She wants her own form of justice.
I want to get her. Yes, I do, Your Honor. I want to get her. You just don't know how I want to get you. You don't know how I want to get you, man.
Once calm is restored, Anderson delivers a statement of her own, but no apology.
I want to say that people make mistakes, and your mistakes don't define who you are as a person.
For James Haller's murder, Anderson's ultimately sentenced to 30 to 60 years in prison, plus 2 years for a firearm charge. McHugh and Ross received a sentence of 21 to 50 years in prison. And Butler, who was prepared to testify against his 2 girlfriends, pled guilty to being an accessory and was sentenced to probation. Next, we're in Hastings, Minnesota for a child custody hearing. It's the second day of trial, and before official proceedings begin, attorney Michelle McDonald, who's representing the mother in the case, approaches the court reporter. McDonald then allegedly accuses the reporter of inaccurately recording the prior day's testimony. She then announces if the court reporter can't do her job, she'll do it. After returning to her table, she pulls out a camera and takes a photo of the courtroom. McDonald's reason for snapping the photo is unclear, but a courtroom deputy takes notice. First, he reminds the attorney that taking photos is prohibited in the district courtroom. Then he confiscates her camera. After what appears to be some heated back and forth, things settle down and the hearing proceeds. But 40 minutes later, during a recess, deputies reapproach McDonald, and they've got some bad news for her. She's receiving a contempt citation for taking photos in the courtroom. They escort her out to a holding area to complete the necessary paperwork. But once there, she refuses to cooperate or give any of her personal information, so she's placed in custody. She's then given a treatment typically reserved only for violent offenders. Under arrest and handcuffed to a wheelchair, the attorney is brought back to her table to finish out the hearing after refusing to stand or walk on her own. McDonald, who appears surprisingly calm given her compromising situation, refuses to speak to Judge David Knutson or present for her client. Following the bizarre incident, McDonald filed a federal civil rights lawsuit against Judge Knutson and county personnel, alleging improper treatment while in the courtroom and during her 36-hour detainment following the hearing. The lawsuit was ultimately dismissed, and the tables turned against McDonald. First, she received a 60-day suspension and 2 years probation for, among other things, repeatedly talking over Judge Knutson and for taking photos in the courtroom without approval. The Minnesota Supreme Court would later suspend McDonald's law license indefinitely for falsely impugning the integrity of the judge in the original case, David Knutson.
That's it for this edition of Court Cam. I'm Dan Abrams. Thanks for watching. Hi everyone, I'm Dan Abrams, and this is Court Cam.
Call the buzzer. Call it.
Take him back! Take him out! I hope you die in prison as well.
First, we head to Seattle, Washington, in the King County courtroom.
This is State of Washington versus Christopher Teal, cause number 181008391, Seattle designation.
Christopher Teal is accused of first-degree rape and unlawful imprisonment. Teal allegedly followed a woman into the bathroom of a car dealership, locked the door, and raped her. The attack was stopped only after company employees broke into the stall and wrestled Teal to the ground. The defendant's in court for a competency hearing to determine whether he's fit to stand trial. Standing next to him is Reed Birkeland, his court-appointed attorney. The jail guard removes Teal's cuffs.
I'm Emily Peterson on behalf of the state. Mr. Teal's present. He's in custody. He's represented by counsel, Mr. Birkeland.
He raises his arm toward Birkeland, but extra security's at the ready.
My understanding from his counsel, who I'll defer to in a moment.
Without provocation, Teal punches his own attorney. The guards immediately pounce on the 6'3" defendant and take him to the ground. Teal's attorney looks to be unhurt.
Put your hand behind your back.
It takes 4 men to subdue Teal, and even then, he refuses to go quietly.
Bring the chair. Bring the chair.
A spit hood is placed over his head as officers return him to jail. Birkeland chooses not to press charges, but he does remove himself from the case. Nearly 2 weeks later, Teal returns to the courtroom.
New counsel has been appointed since the last hearing.
This time strapped to a rolling chair.
New counsel needs
His biggest concern is how his hair looked in his mugshot.
I got one question, one thing to say. I'd like to know where the they got that photo of me with my short hair. Because that was on Facebook, and I don't have a Facebook.
All right.
So you're on it. A legitimate question. Like, do they have access to Google?
The judge schedules another hearing in a week's time, and the trial has yet to begin.
Christopher Colon.
Our next stop is at the Broward County Courthouse in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
He's been charged with 2 counts of violating an injunction.
Where Christopher Colon appears for his bond hearing via video before Judge John Hurley.
Court finds probable cause.
Colon was arrested and charged with 2 counts of violating a restraining order in a domestic violence case related to his ex-girlfriend. He also has an open pending case in which he's being charged for aggravated battery against a pregnant woman, his current girlfriend.
I think I remember you from before coming into this courtroom.
Yes, sir.
I remember.
Less than a month ago, Colon posted bond in the aggravated battery case and went free. So the judge isn't exactly thrilled to see him again.
You're already out on bond. You're already out.
Yes, sir, and my bondsman is willing to take me out again on a bond.
That's very kind of him, but that won't be necessary today because you're.
Well, I'll see you guys. Well, I'll see you guys in with a lawyer and a lawsuit too.
Oh, okay. Oh, wait, bring him back, please.
And you can go yourself too.
Colon storms off.
Would you bring him back for me, please?
Come back. Judge, you back.
Hi. Good morning again, Mr. Colon.
Good morning to you.
Yes, sir. Wait, Mr. Colon. Yeah, don't mute that. Could you turn that mic back on for me? Turn the mic back on.
You guys can. Okay? I'm being dead ass real.
$125,000. Your bond on count 2 will be $125,000.
How much is my bond?
$250,000.
Okay, no problem. I can bond out, man.
Court will also order, sir, on case 14-7168 CF10, you'll be held without bond. That bond is revoked.
With the amount seemingly no issue, the judge has just taken away the bond from the aggravated battery case, meaning Colon will not be able to go free this time. And this really sets him off.
Like I said, you guys why you guys had it.
Sir, the court at this time is inclined to hold you in contempt of court.
I don't give a go ahead, I got lawyers, man.
Your behavior.
I don't got nothing to say, man.
Now, I will find you in contempt of court for disrupting this court. Now, I will give you...
You already was going to find me in contempt of court.
I will give you an opportunity. Is there anything you'd like to say?
You ain't no Hitler, man, for me to have to salute.
Noting that you made no comments in your defense, the court at this time will sentence you to 364 days in the Broward County Jail. Thank you very much. Have a...
that's why.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Can I see Mr. Colon, please?
A week later, Colon is back in front of the judge.
Judge Harley, I apologize. What I did, I was wrong. And not only I was wrong for cursing you out, of the deputies hearing me curse you out, I apologize to them too. Your Honor, I apologize real bad, and I'm asking for my apology, please, Your Honor.
Okay, your apologies accepted. It will be converted to time served at this time.
Cologne's apology gets that additional year sentence for contempt cut down to time served, but still gets no bond on the aggravated battery case and serves almost 14 months before he's released. Our next stop is inside Franklin County Common Pleas Court in Columbus, Ohio, for the sentencing in the disturbing case against 70-year-old Terry McFadden.
You will be a Tier 3 registrant for your lifetime with in-person verification every 90 days.
2 months earlier, McFadden, who worked at a residential daycare business run by his wife, pled guilty to 2 counts of rape. The victims were attendees of the daycare, 2 young sisters, only 4 and 6 years old at the time.
Terry McFadden is a psychopath who raped our girls, fooled us, fooled 25 years worth of families in his wife's daycare. He's a skilled pedophile and a sociopath.
After an emotionally charged statement from the girl's mother that had McFadden shaking his head, Judge Julie Lynch also gives him an opportunity to speak prior to sentencing.
I apologize to the victims, to the 2 little girls. I hope to become to work to become a better person and when I have served my complete sentence.
But McFadden's apology falls on deaf ears.
This court is so sick and tired of seeing adults ruin and abuse children. These are literally just one step from being babies. They come to a daycare, those parents struggle so that when they release their children to someone during the day, they have some semblance that that child is going to be protected and safe. Not let alone 2 of their children being raped by your own admission, sir. For sexual gratification, you violated a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. I do not know at this time what the total ramifications will be for those 2 young children, but there isn't anybody who doesn't understand now the developmental phases of children take place from 0 to 6 years old. You can't even know what damages you've done for sexual gratification. This, to me, is so mind-boggling that you used and abused 2 little children like they're inconsequential beings. Those are human persons with human dignity. I'm going to tell you something, Mr. McFadden. There's no free rapes in my courtroom.
And with that, the judge sentences McFadden.
On count 1, I'm sending you to prison for 11 years. On count 4, I'm sending you to prison for 11 years. They will be consecutive to each other for a total of 22 years.
The horrifying case comes to an end. But before dismissing the court, Judge Lynch issues one last powerful reminder to all.
Folks, if you see it, you smell it, you know it's happening, you report it. And this ends in this courtroom. That'll be all.
We now head over to Hamilton County Common Pleas Court in Cincinnati, Ohio, for the controversial sentencing hearing of Tracy Hunter.
And she has continued to serve the community through casting.
Hunter, a former judge in the Hamilton County juvenile court system, was convicted of unlawful interest in a public contract for helping her brother keep his job as a juvenile corrections officer. It's a 4th-degree felony. She lost her job and her law license and was sentenced to 6 months in jail. Her supporters felt the punishment was too extreme, in particular for someone who'd never been in trouble before and who still had a positive impact in the community. Some also claimed the conviction was politically motivated. Through various appeals, Hunter was able to delay her sentencing for over 6 years. Today, her attorney, David Singleton, is asking the judge to delay sentencing yet again.
She's lost peace of mind, not knowing when that day was going to come that she'd have to go to jail. That's a lot for one person to have on her shoulders.
Judge Patrick Dinkelacker has heard the request and is ready to announce Hunter's sentence. First, he has a message for those self-described registered voters who sent dozens of postcards to his home asking him not to send Hunter to jail.
The attempt was to intimidate me in any way. That has flat out failed, okay? I will never, ever, ever bow to that type of pressure, veiled threats, vicious comments, lies about me or anything else.
Then everyone in the crowded courtroom anxiously awaits Judge Dinkelacker's decision.
Number one, you pay the cost of these proceedings. Number two, you are to do not violate any laws. Number three, you are to do 6 months in the Hamilton County Justice Center. Credit 1 day. Mr. or Ms. Deputy can take her away.
Hunter's supporters are outraged. In fact, keep your eyes on this woman as she attempts to approach Hunter, but is intercepted by court officers. Then watch closely. As this deputy attempts to take Hunter away, initially she seems to resist. But then, perhaps realizing that her time has run out, her body goes totally limp. While shouts of no justice are heard from the gallery, she's literally dragged out of the courtroom. As tempers flare in the courtroom, Hunter's put in a wheelchair and processed, while her supporters exit the building and rally outside. Hunter eventually begins serving the 6 months at the Hamilton County Justice Center, but she's released early, serving just under 3 months based on her participation in a court-authorized work detail. Our next stop is at the Fayette County Justice Center in Fayetteville, Georgia, where 24-year-old Ronard Neal, seen here, appears before Judge Fletcher Sams. Neal's in court today to face previous charges of theft and fleeing officers. But there's one big problem. He was supposed to be there yesterday, but didn't show up. So after a bench warrant was issued for his arrest, Judge Sams orders deputies to take him into custody for failure to appear. But Neal has other ideas. He tumbles into an adjoining courtroom packed with shocked onlookers as he runs through and damages a door. In the hallway, he runs into deputies, including one who desperately tries to hold on to him. But Neal escapes down a stairwell toward the first floor exit. He can almost taste his freedom. But with deputies and police officers in hot pursuit, Neal's escape plan is foiled. Neal is returned to court later that day, where he pleads guilty to his previous charges. And for his escape attempt, which included damaging property and injuring officers, Neal's hit with additional charges and 5 more years in prison. He's currently serving a 10-year sentence in Georgia's Lee State Prison. Next, we take you to Detroit, Michigan, for the trial of Anthony Thornton. Thornton's been charged with 2 counts of first-degree sexual conduct, kidnapping, and a count of unlawful imprisonment. Thornton allegedly attacked 2 different women within the span of 11 months. Today, he's pleading not guilty.
Yes, it was me and her that consensual sex.
Oh, you had consensual sex. Okay.
I asked her.
Thornton chose a bench trial instead of a jury, which means it's up to Judge Vonda Evans to decide his fate.
See, when you tell one lie, you gotta remember the 100 lies that you told to cover that lie up.
That wasn't no lie.
Be quiet and don't talk in my courtroom.
I'm innocent.
Be quiet. Take him back.
That's right.
Take him out. Take him out now. No. Yeah. Take him out.
Thornton's removed from the court, but the judge continues reading her verdict.
And the court is going to so find the defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt as to count 1 and count 2 criminal sexual conduct.
Only when she's finished does Evans bring the defendant back into the courtroom.
Mr. Thornton, I'm going to address with the comment that you made. It was disrespectful for you.
I'm sorry.
To say me.
I'm sorry. Really sorry.
You were out of line.
Yes, I'm I'm sorry. All I've been saying is how things are.
I'm saying what you said to this court.
And I apologize deeply because you've been treating me fair.
I have never been anything but respectful to you. And for you to say me in my courtroom was unacceptable.
Yes, I'm deeply sorry. Just upset because I didn't do it. I'm deeply sorry.
Take it back.
When Evans was done, Thornton was looking at a combined sentence, 45 years. He won't be eligible for parole until 2032. Joining us is retired Judge Vonda Evans. Have you ever gotten that angry at a defendant before?
I had been a jurist at that time for 19 years. I never had a fight. I oversaw criminal matters. So I'm on the front line. I'm the gatekeeper. I know to watch the body language of the people that are attending, my defendants, etc., so that I can be able to alert security so it doesn't get out of hand.
Right.
And I was concerned about the safety of my courtroom, and quite frankly, I demand respect. You know, as a woman jurist, as an individual, I demand respect. And I was not about to allow someone to make a display out of my courtroom. I had to address that issue and diffuse it the way that I saw fit.
Be quiet and don't talk in my courtroom.
I'm innocent.
Be quiet. Take him back.
Once I began to tell him, you are not going to talk to me like this in my courtroom, then I saw him begin to back down because it was a bully move.
And for you to say me in my courtroom was unacceptable.
My reputation in the community, in the penal system is this. She's tough, but she's fair. So when people come in my courtroom, they knew it was no nonsense.
I'll bet.
They knew not to indulge in these shenanigans. It just is an unwritten rule. Don't play no games in Judge Vonda Evans' courtroom. Okay, just don't do that.
How do you keep personal feelings out of the equation when sentencing someone?
I'm not there to cast moral judgment on them, okay? Morally is what you did right or wrong. I'm there to follow the law. And if the law says that based on the facts that were elicited, this person is guilty or this person is not guilty, then that's what I do. I follow the law.
Judge Evans, thank you so much for talking to us today. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so very much for having me, Dan, on your show.
That's all for this episode of Court Cam. I'm Dan Abrams. Thanks for watching.